What's going on, everybody? We're going to do things a little bit differently today. TrueGameData.com has finally updated their Cold War guns, and specifically the MP5, which we're going to be covering today. I wanted to go ahead and show you guys the charts on how this gun compares to a few of the other SMGs in the game, the Bullfrog and the MAC-10, because those are updated as well, and then the MP5 Modern Warfare and the MP7. Then throw together a couple different builds and let you guys know when I would be using those builds, what they'd be better at, and just give you a better idea as to the variations that you can do with this gun. I've been talking about it on stream a lot recently, but it's nice to be able to show you guys now here on the chart. The Cold War Mp5 actually has the fastest time to kill out of any SMG in the game right now. Maybe not the Fennec, but the Fennec has no range. So to me, the Fennec and the ISO, they're irrelevant guns. You might as well use the shotgun. If you're going to use the ISO, you're going to use the Fennec. But the Cold War Mp5 out of these 5 SMGs actually has the fastest time to kill up to 15 meters. And then it only loses out to 2 guns at that point. It would lose out to the Bullfrog and the MAC-10. The Modern Warfare MP5 and the MP7 actually have worse time to kills just about the entire way through. And the MAC-10 and the Bullfrog are only better than the Cold War MP5 up into about 15 to about 23 meters. And then they start going neck and neck. Now, right now, we are just talking about chest shots. This is only if you're shooting in the chest, and this is not taking ADS into account. It kind of depends how you're going to build your gun, if ADS speed actually matters or not. If you're going to Hipfire Build, ADS time doesn't matter. What I'm running right now is a full ADS speed build on my Cold War MP5, which if you do take ADS speed into account, it is still going to be in first place and have the fastest time to kill. I'm not as much of a fan of the Hipfire build on the Cold War MP5 because the Hipfire isn't quite as tight as it was on the Modern Warfare. The Modern Warfare was pretty crazy, just how accurate that gun was with this Hipfire spray. And I just haven't gotten that same feel with the Cold War Mp5. Now, the Cold War Mp5 does have a lot more recoil. So the Hipfire build is actually kind of nice because you don't feel it quite as much when you're shooting it from the hip. However, it is a little bit less accurate and the recoil is straight vertical. So all you have to do is pull down as hard as you can right when the gun starts to fire. And it's not that hard to correct. So it's not really worth it in my opinion. Now, the Cold War Mp5's time to kill holds true all the way through chest shots, all the way through extremities, but the only place that it starts to lose is headshots. Headshots, the Bullfrog hands down has the quickest time to kill out of any of these SMGs in Warzone right now. However, they are going to have very precise aim, and they're not going to be able to miss very many of their shots to be able to outshoot you. Because the Bullfrog's time to kill with hitting nothing but headshots is just under 6 seconds. It is at 5.7 seconds. Whereas if you're hitting your chest shots with the Cold War MP5, you're at 7.5 seconds. So that's only about 1.8 seconds of a difference. And that person is not going to be able to miss any bullets to really be able to outshoot you. And then you couple that with the Cold War MP5's straight vertical recoil. You aim for the chest, you let the vertical recoil take you right up to the head, and you're more than likely going to outshoot the Bullfrog every single time at a close range. Now it's time to talk builds. I'm going to show you guys my build, and then I'll walk you through 2 other builds. Mine is going to be, full ADS, fast pace. Then I'll show you guys a Hipfire, and then I'll show you what I think is probably the best of both worlds. Give you a little bit of Hipfire, give you a little bit of ADS. You can kind of tweak it to whatever your playstyle truly is. Now on my Cold War MP5, I run the Agency Suppressor. I run the 9.5 Task Force Barrel, the Raider Stock, 50 round drum, and the Striker foregrip. I prefer this setup because it gives you the fastest ADS time, the fastest sprint to fire time. Now I do sacrifice some hipfire accuracy. With the Raider Stock, you do lose actually almost 60% hipfire accuracy. So it's not as good if you're planning on hip firing a lot. I've kind of trained myself to pretty much ADS all the time, so it's not that big of a deal for me. However, if you are a Hipfire player, and it is a very strong thing to take advantage of, you probably should use the next build. But if you do just like the ADS, if you're a controller player, if you're a PC player with really good aim, I do think that this is probably your best go-to build. Now, I run the agency suppressor. I covered this in the Krieg video before. It is just too good of an attachment not to run on every single one of your guns. 10% range and 10% vertical recoil control is just too good. You're also going to go ahead and get your sound suppression as well. It's the best of both worlds. I mean, you should really just build it on everything. I also go with the Task Force barrel because of the 50% range increase. Bullet velocity is great. The reinforced heavy is going to give you 133% velocity increase, but you're only getting 3% range. And what is the point of having all that bullet velocity if you're shooting marshmallows at a long range? 80% additional bullet velocity is still amazing. And then you also get 50% range with it. Those two attachments, no matter what build you're going to go with, should be built on every single Cold War Mp5 loadout. Now, I prefer the Raider stock because it is going to give me the highest sprint to fire time, the highest tac sprint to fire time, and then a happy medium of ADS movement speed. Now, the SAS combat stock is nice. You're going to sacrifice a little bit less hipfire area or accuracy. You're going to gain 4% ADS movement speed, but you're not getting that sprint to fire time. And that's honestly what's most important to me. If you're playing super run and gun and you're rushing buildings and that kind of stuff, some ADS movement speed is great, but you're really going to want to take advantage of having that sprint to fire time. Now, if you want to still have your sprint to fire time, not sacrifice so much hipfire accuracy, you could always go the collapsible stock. Now, the collapsible stock is only going to give you 17 milliseconds instead of the Raider at 34 is only going to give you about half. However, you're not going to have any loss of hipfire accuracy. You're also going to lose the aim moving speed. Depending on your playstyle, that might not really matter. To me, I prefer the Raider, but if you don't want to go Raider and you want something happy medium, I would recommend going with the collapsible. For ammunition, I'm running the 50 round drum. I don't feel like the fast mags are actually worth it after checking out the time that you save on the reload on a lot of these guns. They haven't updated it for the Cold War Mp5. It might be so minimal that they couldn't even see how much time you're saving. But you're also doubling your ADS penalty as well, or almost. You're going from 33 milliseconds additional ADS penalty to 63 for the fast mag. And I do know that for the Bullfrog, it was only a 7 millisecond savings on the fast mag versus the drum. So you're doubling your ADS penalty to go from, say 2.8 seconds to 2.73 seconds, and that's really just not worth it. You're not going to lose a fight over that reload time, but you could lose a fight over, a 30 millisecond ADS speed penalty. And then for my underbarrel, I run the striker grip. Now, the recoil for the Cold War Mp5 is literally straight vertical, so I don't really see a need to run the Field Agent foregrip. Now, you could run the Field Agent if you wanted to. Maybe you feel like it has a little bounce left and right, something like that. I just don't feel like it's necessary, so I run the striker foregrip on mine. Said and done though, when I'm done with my Cold War Mp5 build, the only really negative thing that we have coming in is our ADS going from 200 milliseconds to 216 milliseconds, which honestly really isn't that bad. But we're increasing our range by 65%. We're getting our sprint to fire time down from 117 to 100 milliseconds. We're getting 19% vertical recoil control, and we're getting our bullet velocity all the way from 350 milliseconds to 630 meters per second, which is, not quite doubling, but that is an insane increase in your bullet velocity while still getting that 65% range increase. Now, as far as the Hipfire build goes, there's only a couple minor adjustments that I would make to the Cold War Mp5. I would go ahead and get rid of the striker foregrip, and then I would replace that with the 5 milliwatt laser, and then I would get rid of the Raider stock, or simply replace the Raider stock with the collapsible stock. The collapsible stock, as I mentioned before, is going to give you that sprint to fire time, and you're not going to sacrifice the hipfire accuracy, give you a little bit of that extra movement that you're looking for. And then you're going to get 65% additional hipfire accuracy with the 5 milliwatt. Now, I would go ahead and get rid of the striker foregrip because, in my opinion, when you're hip firing, there's not as much recoil that you have to deal with compared to when you're ADSing. It might just be like personal preference, something that I noticed myself. People could be different when it comes to that, but my entire time when I was on the Modern Warfare MP5, I never really noticed the recoil or with any gun, to be honest, when I'm hip firing versus when I'm ADS'd. Now it is going to hurt you a little bit more when you're ADS because you are only going to have the 10% vertical recoil control from the agency suppressor. But to be honest, you shouldn't really be prioritizing or worrying about that anyways. And with it being a straight vertical recoil pattern, all you have to do is pull down as hard as possible and you'll be good to go. Now for my all-around build, all I'm going to do is go ahead and get rid of the stock, and then we're going to add the field agent grip. Now I do say the field agent grip just because it does help with the horizontal bounce a little bit. Now the recoil on this gun is straight vertical, and I really think that the striker is all you need, but we're going for a complete all-around build, try to touch on every little possible thing for the gun. And so I would say the field agent grip. I'm going to stick with a 5 milliwatt laser because then you're still going to get your 65% hip fire accuracy. And the only thing that you're going to sacrifice is your aim moving speed and your sprint to fire speed. Now, personally, I don't want to sacrifice those. I'm super run and gun. I'm pushing buildings. I like to try to bunny hop around corners. All those things, it's super important to have that Raider stock for that aim move speed and the sprint to fire speed. However, for a more all around and balanced build, and for probably the majority of players, I think that this is going to be your best build for the Cold War Mp5. And then the last thing that I wanted to go ahead and show you guys was just the vertical recoil that I was talking about. I'm not so worried about showing a bunch of different builds with the recoil because the recoil pattern is the same. Every single attachment is going to give you the same amount of recoil control. So that's not really as big of a deal to me. But if you shoot this Cold War Mp5, and this isn't me trying to correct it or anything, it is literally just straight vertical, and then it centers itself after about 20 bullets. And the recoil really isn't all that bad. But I want to also show now what I was talking about with the hip fire. When you're hip firing, this is me just straight hip firing and not having to go ahead and correct my aim. And it literally just doesn't move. And that is why on the full Hipfire build, I would get rid of the foregrip because your gun literally just barely moves. It is so easy to correct this thing when it comes time to hipfire this gun versus when you're talking about having that vertical recoil control. As always, everybody, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, it'd be much appreciated if you guys dropped a like. If you enjoyed this content and you want to come back, make sure that you guys are subscribed to the channel and you have notifications turned on so you know that every time I'm posting a video. And if there's ever a gun that you want me to go ahead and cover, if you have some feedback of something that I can change, if you have maybe an idea of a series that I could start that you think would be fun to produce, go ahead and leave in the comments below. I love hearing from you guys.